Welcome to Security Shift. I'm Hani, and today's guest is a security engineer, red teamer, and AI enthusiast who's pushing the boundaries of how we defend networks and understand threat data. Akash brings hands-on experience with pen testing, cloud security, and building tools that merge traditional network analysis with machine learning insight. We dig into where cyber defense meets data science, why adaptability matters, and what the future of security looks like through technical and creative lens. Akash, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Very excited to have this chat and looking forward to, sharing some thoughts that I have about AI and security.
Yeah, I mean to start, before we get into that heavy stuff, let's go into the journey a little bit. So, what drew you to cybersecurity and more specifically red teaming and
Yeah, so when I started, there was, I think it was called pre-machine learning when I started like almost two decades ago. There was a lot of malware that was common in the early years of me being on the internet around 2000, 2001, 2002. There used to be these bots that would like come and infect bunch of computers, and one of them infected my team's network, and we couldn't really use the internet for a week. And I was like, okay, what is this thing that stops everything else, right? How does that work? Because just generally curious, because before that I was a programmer, even though I had an interest in security. I got an opportunity to kind of clean up a couple of machines, Windows machines, of the malware, which required me to kind of not look at Windows like a normal user would, but try and understand what are the internals, what is a registry, where do files get saved, and while there is an entire different area of like how does the malware get in, I was more interested in like, okay, how do you get it out? How do you make sure it's the machine is clean, right? Is it even possible? I did that a few times, and then folks were like around me. They were like, hey, more than programming, seems like this is what really makes you excited. So why don't you build a career in this? And to be honest, I had not really thought of it like that. But when I looked around, there were a bunch of people doing something called the Certified Ethical Hacker course. It was an early certification. And because I had a lot of a background with using Linux for servers, the course was not that complicated because there was a lot of command line stuff. And once I started on that, I joined like a security products company, did some programming for them. And at one point, my job was to find malware online, infect my local isolated lab, and then see the network packets and then write signatures for that. And that was a good
yeah,
gig. Went on for a bit. But then the mobile revolution happened around 2007, 2008, when, beyond Symbian, we had Android coming up, and then the iPhone came out, and there was an app store. A lot of people, especially in India, were like, okay, this is the big deal. We finally have the ability to distribute like a big company, because as you would know, right, it's not enough to just build it. You have to kind of get it out there and
yeah,
distribute.
yeah,
So there were just too many companies who had like a mobile first approach. And obviously, where do you put the APIs? You put them on a server. And what's a useful server to do? This is around the time when AWS took off. And suddenly I was in the mix of these things, right? And that was
yeah,
the kickoff for me. The first bet I made to kind of see, where the world was headed was to say that, hey, all applications will get hosted in the cloud. When I say applications, I mean the backend APIs, right? No matter what the interface, whether you use a laptop or you use a mobile device, the API is going to be in the cloud. The interesting thing about the cloud, whatever makes it easy to get started with, means that bunch of low-level networking things are now abstracted, which means that a developer doesn't really understand the consequences of leaving a network port open or not adding authentication to a service, because they are like, hey, this is in my cloud, only I can see it, not realizing that there are ways attackers can scan en masse and get there, right?
yeah.
And this is the bet that we took, meant that we worked with global companies all over who had apps and products, and then some of the products were for law enforcement. Some of them were like in critical industries like finance, healthcare, and suddenly we were like, hey, we're not just dealing with some opportunistic person, a student sitting in a college campus. There is serious money behind this. There are like serious criminal gangs behind this, which means that you have to upskill. And what are they saying, focused on? And I think from 2015 onwards, we realized that they were actually using a lot of machine learning and, I would say what is Gen AI, to
Yeah.
automate things, to kind of expand and scale. Like how, now marketing is like having a revolution because of the way you can
Correct. Yeah,
scale
it's the
and
same. But
personalize.
the bad actors, when there's more
Yeah,
money in it, it's gonna start there
absolutely.
first, you know?
Yeah.
So absolutely. So
So
I
kind
mean
of like
that's
being on the
fascinating.
front lines, and that's where we
Yeah.
got to where I got to. Yeah.
I love it. I mean, it sounds like your journey it blends a lot. You're at a perfect intersections at a couple points in your career. Like you're blending the curiosity technically with a bit of adversarial thinking and testing and innovation, trying to stay on the cutting edge. That really sets the stage for discussion about not just surviving the threats, but staying ahead of them, right? And making sure
Yeah.
you catch things before that you start to see things pop up in the market, right? So, from your experience red teaming and consulting, what are the recurring mistakes or the gaps that you see that organizations make?
There are many, but across the board, whether you are like just starting out or you have a maturity in your org, most people tend to gloss over the details, the security hygiene, because it requires humans to kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again, which as we know, people get bored. People may not pay full attention because energy levels or something else is like taking their bandwidth. But that's the first one, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it doesn't sound very exciting. It's the same way
Yeah.
saying that, hey,
But it's human
dentist will
behavior.
tell
It's
you
human nature.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like the dentist will tell you like brush twice a day. At least do that. And most people would agree, and they would, in theory, understand. Yeah, that makes sense. But what I've seen is like when they're being told by their parents they're doing that. But as they get a little older, it gets like routine. At some point, they're like, yeah, it's okay. What's the big deal, right? And
Yeah.
then the problems crop up. This is the same thing with security. The second problem is the reason people make mistakes is when something is new, it seems shiny, right? And because a lot of what really makes things work is abstracted. Like most of the internet runs on internet protocol addresses, IPv4, right? So that remains true even now. Even if you have applications and you never really think about port numbers and stuff, but that's still true. But these abstractions mean when the new folks come in, they never really taught that and they can't really visualize it. So, what was hygiene and what was process just seems superfluous to the newcomers. But because the process isn't strong enough, they kind of gloss over those details and they think that, oh, this new thing will be solved with a new thing. And then bad things happen, right? And I
Yep.
see this as
Yep.
a phase.
They
It
throw it
just
under the
every
rug.
single
They
time. Yeah, every single
Yep.
time. Whether it's like data centers to cloud to mobile apps, thinking of that you should not put your secrets. Whether it was in the when it was in the backend apps, it's okay, but in the mobile, it's a problem. Then people learn that you can easily reverse engineer a mobile app. The same way with when people started building single page applications, all these cool JavaScript frameworks came in, and the applications were like very cool. The UX was amazing, the UI was amazing, but then again, they started putting secrets in the front end, right?
Yeah.
Because that is how they were learning. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's the same thing with the SQL and now prompt. They both can be injected because fundamentally the machine cannot differentiate between what is data and what's a command. The attackers know this, that they were able to use SQL injection to steal data, to do
Mhm.
breaches, and now they can do prompt injection and steal data and do breaches. So I think these are
Yeah.
the two
Yeah.
really big ones that remain constant.
Yeah, yeah, and it makes sense, right? The tooling will help, right? But it doesn't solve the culture, the complexity in architecture, and the vendor sprawl, and the challenges you're seeing with movement of new individuals. So that's human, fallibility. So the tools can do only so much in that environment. Well put, well said. And to that point, getting a little bit more technical, like you did build a tool that ingests raw network traffic, so you could look at like the PCAPs, convert them to structured data, and you use local LLMs for deeper analysis, right? So it's very ambitious. Tell me or us and those out there, like, what's the promise and what are the limitations that we should watch out for potentially there?
The promise always is, think of it as a management principle, right? Whatever you measure, you manage, right? The same way security, whatever is visible to you, you're able to secure. What is not
Yep.
visible to you, it's an unknown, and there's nothing you can do about it. You'll
You
never
can't
see it
secure
coming.
something you can't see. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the promise is that there are newer places where data, where commands are going to end up. Either it's at an interface level or at a protocol level or some kind of in the middle, like an MCP. Because people can't visualize, they don't know what else can go wrong, but the attackers are already latching onto it. The first thing you want to do is bring it to the surface, at least highlight, hey, this could be problematic. The biggest challenge always will be that the time to market, the speed at which people want to get out there, because the competition means that vast majority of products, the code that's written when it's released has not been fully tested and the coverage is not complete. But it's like a a yin and yang problem. If you don't release code, you don't have a business, you don't make money, then there's no point in security. Right? But
Yep.
if you do become
Yep.
successful, suddenly you have to kind of do an almost like an 180 about turn and be like, hey, okay, now we need to be secure because we have the data of so many this thing, right? So the
Yeah.
promise
Yeah.
always is that, hey, can we bring visibility? And when we bring visibility, it'll be easy for us to have that conversation that, hey, this is a risk. This is a risk. Now, are you willing to accept this risk or is it a problem? Regulated industry is simpler because the industry framework says that secure this, secure this, secure this, or this is acceptable, this is not acceptable, right? But you and I know that a lot of data that is currently being traded and the identities that get stolen out of consumers, right? So there's this like huge swaths of people who are left without any recourse if either data is stolen, identity is stolen, or something like that happens. So that's the idea. The stacks are not very clear, like who will win the AI race. So we don't know what visibility will be useful. But we're like, rather than waiting for everything to settle down because the attackers aren't waiting, might as well like start showing visibility right now and start teaching people that there is a way some type of people think about, attackers think like, which you are not doing that, but that can cause problems. And
Yeah.
fundamentally, it's about users' data.
Yeah, yeah, and look, I think you've answered some of this, right? Thinking a little bit out of the box. But if you were advising a startup right now or mid-sized company, what key practices should they adopt now to build robust, resilient security postures?
See, I have a consulting answer and I have the real answer. Let me give you the
Yeah,
consulting answer.
I'd love both, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Let's hear both. Let's be real.
there are three things that have to be done. Whatever your application is, whatever your infrastructure which will power the application is, right? And whatever your interfaces are, whether for your customers or your vendors, right? The website is an interface or the API could be an interface to a partner, like people embed Stripe, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have to know to have the visibility of that infra, like what is open, what's not, and you need to be aware that, okay, I'm taking this risk or I'm not, right? That's at the infra level. If you don't solve that, everything else doesn't really matter, right? It's like the front door to your home. You have to keep it locked, right, before you think of anything else. Now, the second thing is there is enough guidance out there for writing secure applications. And typically, unless and until you go out of your way to custom code everything, if you're following frameworks or the best practices of any framework, front end or back end, like a Python framework, like a Django or a JavaScript framework in the front end, you're not likely to make mistakes, right? That has to be done. But what are you really protecting when you are following the framework? Fundamentally, your application is talking to a database, is talking to some kind of a cloud load balancer, is talking to an LLM. And all of these are connected with some kind of authentication token, right? Some secret. These secrets have to be available to the application when it's running, right? But what happens is when people are building things, they end up storing these secrets in their source code itself, end up committing it. So I tell any startup that, hey, before you put one line of code in a server, why don't you set up your pipeline, like whether it's a GitHub action or some CI/CD thing? And when you do that, you have a central place where you can add the secrets at runtime. The best part is because you take this, the power away from every single dev to know the secret. What you are basically able to say that the secret that will go in the production, the database key in the production will be added at the time the code is ready for production, and devs can keep doing whatever is in the non-production, critical data, right? So if you can set up your pipeline, that's great. After you have visibility of infra, if you do these two things, then the only thing remaining is your developers need to know about secure coding. And again, there is a lot of great advice by Open Web Application Security Project, OWASP, right? All of their stuff is free. If you are a human, you can download the PDFs. If you prefer to point your LLM to it, they have markdowns. If you say that, hey, I want like curl rules or windsurf rules, because while I'm coding, I wanted to make sure that it's safe, you get those as well. So you do these three things and you're better than 99% of stuff compared to others, right? But this is a startup. The startups can solve this. Mid-market have one more problem. They end up integrating bunch of things, right? Whether it's like a Salesforce integration or a HubSpot integration. The challenge is now you're like crossing team boundaries. The engineers understand that the HubSpot token or the Salesforce token is important and secret, but it's quite possible that the team on the other side, a sales team or a business team, might be storing that in an Excel sheet, right?
Yeah.
And because these things are expensive, you don't really get a lot of opportunity to have like different instances of dev tests and stuff, which means that the secret is like in some Excel sheet, in some Slack message, and bunch of them. So you can't really solve the business process in mid-market because you're still trying to earn more customers. You're not really enterprise. What you can do, in fact, then is that, okay, I need to have a simple process that in case this key is leaked, how do I revoke it? How do I rotate it? And can I shorten the time between the leak and the time I'm able to kind of take action on it, right? Which again, you can do with visibility. But between these 3-4 things, majority of companies can do well, but that's not how it really works. It's always like who has access. There are senior people, they leave, then the juniors come in, the technical details get lost, and you know how it is, right? People are always like racing against deadlines.
But
so that's the real answer and the consulting answer.
The real answer is don't move on. Don't document, don't share your don't keep your keys in Excel. But yeah, no, I mean, we see these challenges all the time in the industry. So absolutely right. And Akash, I mean, like there's a lot of excitement, right? You've been working with these technologies for a long time. There's a lot of the downside and the threats and the dark side of it as well. I mean, I want to ask, is there a tool you've used or something that surprised you, across the stack in terms of ROI, or using something where you've seen gains that are significant relative to like maybe what others might be seeing or using today?
Yeah, I think the biggest impact can come from how I understand things. How quickly can I get my team to understand at the same level, right? Because nothing else will give you more ROI than the entire team being able to adopt things, right? When I say team, it could be internally or it could be the external customer team, right? And in that sense, using a password manager, enterprise password manager, or a secrets manager, which has interfaces for humans, has the ability to kind of send secrets to a server, or the ability for a human to kind of add a secret and then it's used by servers. That's a game changer.
Yeah.
Some of the most successful secure implementations we have done, what some people call DevOps or DevSecOps, was to kind of integrate the CI/CD, the software pipeline, with a password manager or a secrets manager. And a lot of what I spoke about is solved, right? The biggest is any mature organization, after they have this setup and they have the incident response, what they're able to do is like, as soon as they're able to detect that some key has been leaked, something has to be rotated, the ability to do that from central location and just make a new release of the software, of the application, and suddenly the leak key has no meaning because it can't be used anymore, right? Because the secret manager allows you to kind of plug it into the CI/CD, and most humans are not involved, right? And like I'll give you an example. Recently, there was a huge breach of Drift, owned by Salesloft. Drift got hacked. We don't know how, but what they had were over 1,000 tokens of Salesforce instances of really large companies like Google, like Cloudflare, right? Like CrowdStrike, some of the security companies also. And it took almost 25 days for Drift and Salesloft to realize what's happening. For a few days, Salesforce had to kick out Salesloft completely from all their integrations.
Shut down the application. Yeah, I saw
simply because they had to take that drastic step, simply because there was no easy way to revoke the tokens, right? And whether it's bad architecture or it organically grew like that is immaterial.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't matter.
The biggest impact post breach was this. right?
Yeah.
That sales loft, which basically, if you go to their webpage, their business is to integrate with Salesforce, make it simple
Yeah.
for all kinds of things to integrate Salesforce. For 5 days, had been told by the platform that you cannot integrate. Right? That's like a massive, massive self goal. But
Yeah.
yeah, secrets management, if you can solve that, and this is the thing, right? Then your junior most developer knows that I will only get access to this thing when I need it just in time. And
Yep.
even if I end up like putting it in Slack and that gets leaked, the production database is not impacted because this is not the secret that's for the production database, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that's that one tool. There's a company called HashiCorp. They have a tool called Vault. Enterprises use it. And one of the main reasons for their massive success, commercial success, was the adoption of Vault, because it solved this really terrible, difficult to solve problem. Difficult not because it's a technology problem, it's actually getting different teams to work together a problem, right?
Yeah.
And they did it
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah. And it's very insightful. I mean, it's a great example of things we need to look out for here. So, kind of switching gears in a practical manner with Kloudle and what you're doing currently. I mean, do you have any examples or like what are you delivering in terms of outcomes for your customers? And, then we'll kind of segue into kind of what are you looking to do? What are the next steps for you and the organization moving into the new year?
Yeah, so again, coming back to, there are only three things that I believe have to be solved for security, right? And I am also very aware that security is a ancillary function. It's not a strategic function for any kind of org, unless you're in an intelligence organization and that's your jam. But let's exclude that. Fundamentally, you want visibility of whatever your external stuff is, because without that, anyone can attack you, right? Solve that first. Get the front door, a strong front door with a good lock, taken care of. That's what Kloudle does by default. And we do it in a manner that is so simple that you just sign up, do it, don't even talk to us, and you get a result within like 30 minutes. And the price point is so low that anyone can get started, right? A lot of my customers actually, they use DigitalOcean Cloud simply because they are price sensitive, but when they really need it, they just want a simple, steps to what is exposed by my app in infra, right? That's step one. You want that visibility of what your attack surface is. The second thing is my application safe or not, right? Application, product, I use them interchangeably. If a user goes rogue or a user's credentials are stolen, right? I trust my users by default, but now the user credentials are gone and attacker has them, right? What can they do to the application? Right. That's the second answer thing that we answer with the services business that I have called AppSeco, and we call it product security. Right. Where the step one is your infra safe, and the second is your product secure or not from attackers, like how attackers think about things. If you solve these two, and I'm not talking about the secrets management, that's more like an organization level challenge, right? It's not very easy to do that. But the third thing is access control. You have users, you have partners, you have vendors, you have all kinds of different roles. Even within a org, you will have users who have basic permissions, you have admins, you sometimes have even super admins, or you have like auditors, right? All kinds of roles which you have to support because the business demands it or the regulation demands it, right? That access control has to be solved within the organizational framework. And typically, we ask whatever infra, whatever cloud they're on, to kind of use that native solution, use Cloudle to kind of monitor that. If you have given access to a bunch of users and then, monitor regularly, now the users have left the system or they don't need to be, those keys don't have to be active. Monitor, take action, you automate it or give it an LLM to an agent, it's all the same, right? And if you keep releasing a lot in your products, new features, get them tested. In the future, or whatever we already started doing, is like the new interfaces are coming, whether the interface is connecting to an LLM or exposing your internal APIs using an MCP server, right? So these are the new things that you have to get tested, because what shouldn't happen is that developers assume that these are secure by default, and they're not, right? Because MCP in the spec itself, they had no authentication for the first three versions. So if someone was just following the spec diligently, they were not doing any authentication. So we're just looking at those things. There is a new emerging area that's coming up in red teaming, which is like developer laptops are being targeted because developers are expected that they're using a lot of agents to do their coding. to do web
Microservices,
search,
complex like
right? Yeah.
Kubernetes, exactly. So
Yes.
runtime
So
security,
yes,
absolutely. Yeah,
but
yeah,
we don't really have a tool for that, simply because again there's like bunch of things in this. There are some large companies like Palo Alto trying to who offer tools and platforms, but what we have seen in the industry is that as much as the product is used, the same amount of effort is put in the integration. So it's almost like a product plus service play, right? Professional service play, which
mm,
really large companies, enterprises can offer. But this is where the world is headed. My personal bet is that there'll be a lot more really small teams.
yep,
Like if you
yep,
think that there are a million teams today, there could be a 10 to 100 million teams, and they will be category winners in multiple categories across the board, vertical industries and horizontal. And they will need very simple tools. They don't want to become security experts. They don't really have any interest in that. If their agent can be given the context, hey, this is the problem, this is the acceptable risk, do you want to fix it or not? And they have the the button, okay, yeah, I want my S3 bucket safe right now, don't secure this bucket because that's where my static site is. That's all they
yep,
need, right? So we try
yep.
to build like smaller, like a suite of tools for that at this point, but
I love it.
still
That's
early
exciting.
days. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but Akash, I mean, I love the direction. I love the insight. Thank you so much. And I think this one's near and dear to my heart personally. In growth, you mentioned, you can't just build it. You got to get it out there, right? And when you're looking at like, let's say 1 million, 5 million vendors, and you're going to get to 10, 20, however many, right? If you believe, and I truly do, that you're going to have kind of category winners, what is your advice to get it out there once they've built it, right? How, because this is the challenging piece for many leaders, right? So any advice on that and how you're doing it, maybe a little bit of best practices there.
Yeah, so I'm nowhere near an expert in this, right? So what I try to do is like follow experts, and I'm actually doubling down only on two channels right now, LinkedIn and YouTube, simply because video seems to be what works really well for the younger set of folks.
Yeah,
The founders, devs, they learn a lot from that, especially with the summarization features. A lot of them may not even watch the full video, but the summary helps
yeah,
and stuff. LinkedIn for kind of explaining why we do what we do, like
yeah,
the kind of the overall question, right? Why I am like looking at Cloudle and AppSeco, or why I think of cloud security. Where does cloud security now fit in with the AI security? Why am I saying that red teaming is really key as opposed to just what used to happen earlier, which is pen testing, right? So LinkedIn is really good for that, simply because anyone who's spending even a few $100s or thinking of spending a few $100s or more with you, they are going to LinkedIn to kind of look at, is this legit? Is this person legit? Is the company behind that, right? More than the website. And the websites kind of like become a thing which, SEO and geo and answer anywhere should solve it. But it's so early right now that it's not very clear who's going to win. Google should win eventually. They just have the largest thing, but you never know,
yeah,
right? So
yeah, yeah.
not betting
No,
on
you
that.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And wishing you the best. I mean, this is really raw, real, and very inspiring. Really appreciate the insight, Akash. So if the listeners want to reach out to you, how do they do that? What's the easiest way to get in touch with you, Akash?
DM me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my social network. I'm on it like
Okay.
if I'm in front of a computer, I'm on LinkedIn.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Yeah,
thanks for
yeah.
tuning in. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Until next time, build smart, stay vigilant, and always assume breach. So thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much, Hani. Really nice talking to
Thank
you.
you.